Hello and welcome to Elliot at Will.
No, wrong.
Oh.
Hello and welcome to Will et al. So we've had a great response to Elliot's tweet. So on the back of a question from Taj, which was about changing outlet shape, we're going to discuss outletting.
Right, Will, 30 seconds. I want you to try and explain outletting. Go.
Okay, so outletting, we're talking about our set shape when we have the ball. As a team, what we are going to try and do to penetrate an opposition set press. We might commonly talk about 3 at the back, 4 at the back, 5 at the back, or a 3-man outlet, 4-man outlet, 5-man outlet. But it's also important to consider the midfield and the forwards' role in how we as a team penetrate a press. We might change our outlet shape to create other spaces or opportunities to go forward and press that and disrupt that press by manipulating defenders and spaces.
How long was that?
I forgot to start the timer. Elliot, why are we looking to do this?
We're looking to do this, Will, because we feel there is a lack of content out there. There is a lot of good coach CPD going on, but we wanted to add some technical, tactical information for coaches to access.
And I think it's important that these are our thoughts. It's not black and white. This isn't the only way to do something. There's more than one way to skin a cat, but this is how we might do it and what we might be thinking about in this situation in the game. So over to you, El. Outletting.
Okay. Cheers, Taj, for your tweet, buddy. Just having a look at what I would consider a basic outletting shape and outletting pattern. Obviously, outletting is about trying to negate and beat an opposition press and trying to get the ball up the pitch from our sort of hit out or our 16. So it would obviously vary based on preparation for an opposition. But my main thoughts around outletting are, if we're going to start with a back 4 shape, key things for me are trying to get centre backs nice and wide apart, and I aim to try and have them around injection to D width apart if possible, and trying to be offset so they are staggered in their height, just to give us an out ball really. Half-backs very much depend on where the forwards line set up. So if they are set up in, let's say, a 3-quarter press, we would have our half-backs trying to challenge that line that they've made, the game line here. So by being on the game line, if this player is on the ball, if he's going to receive the ball or she's going to receive the ball, it's important that they're not in front of the forward, because that allows the forward to easily press and put pressure on, but trying to sink slightly behind if we can in an ideal world, or certainly on par with. And the wider we get, really, it gives us a bit more of an angle to extend our half-backs into what you're talking about, Taj, roll them up. So if we were to look to roll from a back 4 to a back 3, in an ideal world, we do that through right half. So we're looking at forehand down the sideline. And we try and get a little bit wider and players roll round. The key thing really is left half is going to tuck in and cover, and we become a back 3 to then promote this player up to join the forward line. And then if we're playing balls, we can use that angle past the forward line. Obviously, whilst this is all happening, there is a front 3 players usually, if we're talking about man-to-man, or a sort of standard 3-quarter press, trying to press this back 4. So it's important technically we get it right. So we need to have ideally forehand to forehand passes, or to be confident to trap it on our reverse and then play quickly onto the forehand. What we do further up the pitch is a little bit different. So midfielders usually would look to lead together in potentially either a clockwise or anti-clockwise pattern. And then what we're looking to do is time our lead so that as the ball is being played across, our centre half here would be looking to post into the space behind the forward 3, leading off his man, so hopefully creating a bit of separation to receive the ball and turn and play. Or obviously we've still got our option to half-back. As that is happening, I think it's really important that the midfielders, the inside forwards, are linking with that player. So they're then giving this guy an option should he receive the ball, or looking to lead for the next lead. So if the ball then gets transferred back across, this guy's timing is then about meeting the ball to give us another option where potentially he can play in and connect with a halfback. Whilst that is obviously going on, the forwards are looking for the ball, ideally from halfbacks. My opinion is that forwards try to look for the ball from centre-backs, particularly, say, in our league of Taunton Vale, West Prem, too often. So he goes looking and wants to receive a 60-yard ball from a centre-back. I'm not averse to that, but it's certainly a bit more high risk, and it's a bit more of a second phase lead we probably should be looking for. Ideally, we want the forwards leading for the halfbacks. So what would usually be happening is we'd have some players in here marking as forwards. So our options are we can do something called traffic lighting, which is stacking up as a set of traffic lights, and then we decide who is going to do what lead. So ideally, we would want one wide lead, we'd want a high lead, and we'd want a lead to make sure we maintain height in the circle. So as the ball is coming from this halfback, let's say.
Can I jump in on that, El?
Yeah.
Obviously, like the key and the reason why we would be doing the stacking is what?
To try and create a moment of separation from our defender. So if I'm a forward and I'm being tightly marked by this man, I'm trying to make sure I can create a moment of separation to get away from him. So if we were to just lead independently, which happens quite a lot, what happens is the players go with them and it becomes quite easy to defend. If we set up either as a traffic light or as a stack, so a stack would be together as such, the defence don't know what's going to happen. So it's much harder for them to defend because as this player leads, and then they've got a decision to make. So we're trying to force that decision onto the defender.
I mean, so I would talk about in there. Generally, wouldn't use traffic lights. I generally talk about stacking, really. But by coming together as a three, you do create that chaos around the defenders, particularly if they're man to man. So you force them to create a bit of space out wide, which is generally where you might receive the ball.
Yeah.
And by being tighter together, it means as we do play the ball forward, we're in a better position to connect with each other as a unit. So we can, if one of us is able to receive, we've immediately got forward to forward pass. I think what, as you say, what tends to happen too often is, and there's positives and negatives to it, depending on the skill set of the players, but you tend to get a left forward, a centre forward, a right forward in very discrete areas on the pitch. Ball comes through to them.
So and a forward might post up here, receive the ball, but then we've got a disconnect with where the other forwards are.
Yeah, and really, really isolated. So it's fantastic if, that player's Tunda Neuer and mug everyone off. But you've got to look at what the relative skill set of the groups of players are. So actually isolating someone for them to have that carry option is absolutely fine if that person's got that skill set. But the stack maybe presents the opportunity to create space and then work together more as a unit, like the traffic lights would, and just add that chaos to the defenders. I mean, you're basically asking defenders to come together and do the same job.
Definitely. I think the key thing is being in man-to-man. In zone, it becomes a bit different because they're asking a different question of us. But in man-to-man, we are trying to create exactly that, which is chaos and this moment of separation, which is really important. And then, like you say, as the player has received the ball, rather than being offset and then having to force a carry or force something, is there an option available where we can play and then create more chaos? So if this forward receives it and we get, let's say we're in that setup there, for example, because we've led at the right time, now he can face forwards and see we've either got a 2-on-1 on the outside or a 3-on-2 here, and can we then overload and exploit that? I think also probably just from, again, talking about my club experience, we can be guilty of not playing these balls, even though there's no traffic there and we don't play them into space. So often we want to play a stick-to-stick pass rather than a stick-to-space pass. So the idea, as a forward myself, not known for running, but as the ball is played down the line, we want to meet the ball in space because that gives us that moment of separation away from the defender where we can then make and execute that decision. Whereas I think quite often we want to lead, pass, and then all that happens is the defender's right on our back, and then, like you said, we have to force something unless we are.
Can I actually say as well? I think in that situation, having a double movement to take the defence, so you're already starting in your central stack area.
Yeah.
But having a double movement from the forward to take the defender, even maybe a post up to take them down the spine of the pitch, then allows you to jump back out and receive facing forward even easier. So let's say they start centrally. If that, as the ball comes out, if let's say the first one's man marked with a yellow,
yeah,
the red posts up very centrally. That yellow goes with them generally, and then it gives you much more opportunity out on that left-hand side to receive forward, even from the same person. So that double movement from the same person. So if that person then bounces back into that corner, then you're in behind them and you're breaking the next game line.
Yeah.
So the receive itself becomes breaking a game line, not just the outlet around the forwards, but that double movement can allow us to penetrate again, almost a double penetration.
Yeah. I think the key bit here is technicals for the defenders as well. They want to receive it forehand. They want to receive it with feet facing forwards, something that is often, when you're looking at a slow outlet, if you just look at the way that the players are receiving the ball, are they receiving the ball forward facing? Are they receiving the ball with vision forward? And then it's about an understanding here. Can we create layers? So can we have layers in the circle where actually if it's going to get played, he may actually post out the space for it to hit the high man. Going back to the midfield, probably, personally we play 4-2-4. We quite like 4-2-4 because it gives us a bit more fluidity in our forward four, and like you say, creates more chaos. So what we would try to look at is a shape perhaps a bit more like that. So we have two screens in here, which gives us two different options. So it's allowing us to actually ask the question of these guys, are they going to mark us tightly? Are they going to sit off? And we do a little bit less leading. So the two screens then looking to play through half back. Or like we've just said there, can we roll round? And we've gone to back five quite recently. Can we roll round so we then get this attacking wide option and get the ball higher up the pitch, which then changes the way these guys lead. So if this ball is going to come to a promoted half back, we are then looking very much at hitting the T-spot a bit more and creating our height in the circle. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Big fan of back five. When I've played back five, we generally leave people virtually in the two high corners of the pitch.
So we...
particularly if they've got a card.
Through personnel, we've done that, and we've played 3-2-3-2, or we've played... in various shapes, but whether you call it back three or whether you call it back five is your choice. I think if you're in this back five shape, I agree with you about the height. If you are in a deeper back five, it gives you these shorter passing options rather than having to play the ball 60 metres or 40 metres or whatever it is. You can play a much shorter, much quicker around the back. You then, if the screens do a good job, you're really asking a question of the back. You get your numerical superiority here rather than higher up the pitch. And I think then, if you've got confidence in your, as a team, you can start to roll and really, like you say, the roll really high and put more pressure on. And because they've started so deep, it adds a lot of confusion. Or, like you've just said, you play with three high forwards, a three high mid. So you're playing in there, two high in the circle. And I think you gave me this example about where you even pushed your guys even higher up, didn't you?
Yeah, and in particular, I mean, like when you've got long corners and stuff like that. When you're playing against a deep defensive block or a team that doesn't really want to press you, and they're taking away the height of the pitch by sitting deep, I think you've got to try and find the space somewhere else. So maximising the width the whole of the time, I find it that in that situation, the back five is very, very effective.
Here's an example from the EHL, some outletting. You can see they've got a wide back two set up, playing into centre half, who is rolling in to almost act as a centre back. Left back advancing, and then as the ball comes back around, that's left back to centre back, all the way across to wide centre back, and there's a promoted half back who comes back into shot now. And then we see a good lead from the forward higher up the pitch to meet the ball, stick to space pass, and a second phase lead from the other forward. Example here from Taunton Vale Hockey, not too dissimilar from the EHL. You can see here the boys trying to get themselves into a back four shape. Straight away our centre back pushes through into centre mid. Ball in centre half, a ball straight back into an inside forward who's led, and then some screenplay. And then now we're asking a question about left mid. Nice ball down the line to a forward who's led out.
I think it's fundamental when you come, if you just pause here, when you come up against a team that is splitting, that you have to use massive depth, and you ask that player that's splitting how far they're prepared to detach from the rest of their press. So you isolate them. It might create space for the person who is in possession of the ball to actually ignore the split straight away and play in behind them.
Or carry through, I would always encourage.
Or carry through, yeah. If you end up very, very square, then actually the split becomes very, very effective. And it's really interesting and quite fundamental to dealing with a split here is when the ball has gone to the support side centre-back, which we're just seeing that pass now, the immediate reposition of the other centre-back, which keeps that split player away from the rest of the press.
Again, you can see Australia, you can see the Dutch holding this central channel of the pitch, which is what we spoke about earlier. It creates a bit of confusion for some of the Australian players, but they are very physical and very quick, so they're not that bothered. You can see the Dutch already, left half is going, and he's gone, creating early overload. This is right half, centre-back, centre-back. And that creates some space to do that. But if you look at it from a structural perspective, that space is created because the players hold the centre of the pitch. That creates this channel for the halfback to play in a massive 2-on-1 on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Again here, nice wide centre-backs, high half-backs, really challenging the game line, asking a lot of questions of this right forward as to where is he going to stand, how is he going to deal with that situation. As we just said, the split, you are asking, can you ask a question of him? And he has by carrying. And now he's created a 2-on-1 on the outside. No one's engaging him. So we're able to play all the way down the line and create a 2-on-1 with the halfback. If I was to train outletting, from my perspective, I'd try and create a safe space. So let's say we'd set up with a back four in here. And this space would be safe for them. And I'd maybe do it over 3/4 pitch to start with. I'd try and encourage the forwards to be in the high circle and then the midfield to be in here. And I'd try and match them up like for like initially, or maybe just slightly underload it. And then what I think the safe space does, it allows the forwards still to press. But the idea being that these guys can get the technicals of this right whilst not being pressed. It also allows for them to try and roll round into sort of a back three perhaps and promote one up. So as long as that when they cross this line, they're pressed, you get a bit more game realism. And then maybe look to try and encourage a few pockets of space that we want to try and receive the ball in with flat markers or with just conversation as to how we may look to try and penetrate an attack circle. I think probably then I'd add an amount of transfers they're allowed before they can be pressed. So maybe a backwards passes. So if they make 2 complete transfers, the forwards become live and can go and press. Or the other way I'd try to do this in terms of a technical perspective, which I believe, if I quote a Gibson here, I think this is one of his exercises, but I think he may have stolen it from someone else, to be honest. Goal and a goal. And then I have a transfer on behind the goal on both sides. And it's effectively a goal-scoring game as well. But these guys are able to transfer and they're looking to play balls through into a sort of 3-on-3 in the circle. So again, you get some forward leading, some forward communication from this. You get some back four outletting. It could be a back three outletting. But the idea being that they're playing into a D with a goalkeeper. And then you get some outletting over distance technically, as well as the forward leading.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, so it's funny actually because I also went with having a safe space for an outlet. I think fundamentally it's important to have goal to goal, because actually if I'm outletting here, part of outletting fundamentally there has to be a consequence to when I mess it up. So in terms of my outlet shape, I've also got to be prepared to protect against a counter attack.
Definitely.
The risk of a safe space actually is that what we might have, by safe space, we're basically talking about an unopposed area for the outletting team to play in. So people can jump in to change the outlet shape or jump out. So we could go back four, back three, blah, blah, blah. The danger is that in this safe space here, because it's unopposed, you don't get the disjoint of the two centre backs.
Yeah, which is why I would have it initially as a safe bit, and then I'd add the transfer, so then it could be pressed as a progression through.
Yeah,
like you say, then if they lose the ball, they are still defending this goal, which has a goalkeeper.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, for me as well, it might be that safe space, you allow a certain number of opposition players to go in.
Yeah.
Which could be coach cues. So it could be after 10 seconds, one player can go in. 15 seconds, now two players can go in there. And you can layer it up, which ramps up that pressure. I think the less opposed, the lower the cognitive load, and therefore engagement drops a lot of the time. So having that ability to ramp that up is really important.
And another good unopposed one that I made up, it's based on a bit of a Zim that an old friend Lucy used to run. We did this a few weeks ago with the first team boys at school, and we started effectively with balls in the middle, a centre back and a half back, a centre mid, and then I think it was two forwards. And initially it was just the one, and I think there might have been two mids in here. And all the condition was they were playing down this side to a goal and a goalkeeper, and then the opposite was happening down this side. So it was just breaking the outlet up. So it was an outlet. They could go back to each other, but then they could play through midfield and into midfield and out, or they could play line ball to the forwards. But the point was the starting positions for the forwards were always the same. So they started high and the midfield started in. And all it was giving him a bit of time to receive and either look to distribute long or look to distribute short. And then I built it up. So then I added in, then there was, like you say, a forward pressing. So they had a bit more of a cue. Then it became a 3-on-2 in here rather than and then we got to full numbers. But because it was down one side of the pitch, it just gives an outlet, and you get the outletting long, and you get a little bit of 3-on-2 at the goal here, and the same happening this side. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it was really nice because I very much started it unopposed as such, and then the boys took it to be more opposed. They told me, right, we've got this bit now, sir. Can we layer it up and adding in different defenders? And they made it really realistic because then they put the consequences on it.
Yeah, and I think that's key. The layering and the consequence and immediately makes it more transferable. The other thing you look at, I mean, you can speak about how adding constraints to, because I'm talking very game-based, very fluid, adding constraints to the pressing team will elicit a response from the attacking, from the outletting team. And that's that sort of implicit learning, which is very, very powerful. That whole self-discovery stuff is pretty good. I mean, the other thing as well, depending on what you want to try and see, it could be like if you want to see us play through halfback, well, it might be that you play and you only allow your midfield to play very, very central. So you apply a box between your outlet space and your target space, so the other D. And you say, well, our midfield are only allowed to play in here. They can't drift outside of that. Well, if they can't go outside of that, then it gives the opportunity in here. If we are going to play wide, it's only the halfbacks that are really, or the forwards that are going to find that space. So that should naturally see the emergence of either promoting halfbacks up to use that attacking space, or forwards drifting out to turn it into a 5-man outlet. So I think it's just think about why you're doing something, what you're trying to elicit from the team, and then be quite clever in terms of the constraints that you can layer on in terms of just normal gameplay that may force them to explore trying different things to get success.
Totally agree. And if you were to talk about a rondo, because if I don't, Jimmy Bateman would annoy me. That would go at me. You can make it big pitch size. So a lot of the technical stuff I'll do within rondos is trying to give them technical without repetition. By just playing something like that, this is again just all off the top of my head, but by having a 4-on-2 in the middle plus players around the outside, so 6-on-4 ultimately, you end up getting these nice long pitch distributions, playing through lines. You get them playing and receiving under pressure as if they were in a game. Maybe numbers slightly wrong here, but it just encourages that movement and the movement patterns that you'd be looking for.
This is my favourite. It's not really a rondo, but if you haven't
call it a rondo, it's a rondo.
We'll call it a rondo, but I don't think it's a rondo.
Jimmy, at James Bateman, if you could come in and let us know if this is a rondo or not. That'd be fantastic.
This is not a rondo.
And to add, Twitter Twitter's gone mad. They want you to sort your board out for our next session, please, because
sorry, yeah, I mean
these are very poor.
I think I'm compensating for something.
Well, no, size. It's the quality of your lines. They're not even straight, Will.
I think why not? I think it's perspective. Right, okay, so there's my box. You can either have 2v2 in the middle, or 3v3 in the middle. The rule is you must have at least one person on the outside. So if it's the crosses, that's their outside. They must have at least one person outside both line. Blues, dots, must have at least one person outside there. By saying that's it, it's a very simple rule. You allow them the opportunity to explore how to change that. And so, the aim of the game is crosses are trying to go from here into the middle, out to the side. They can't go direct through, but you can change that as a rule. Dots are trying to go from there into there. So if they win the ball, they're going the opposite way. By having this rule of just one person has to be on the outside, and if they leave, it's a foul, the other team get the ball. What you can start to do is creative ways to change that. So you could have all three of them out there, and that's unopposed around the outside, so they can pass it amongst themselves and find the opportunity to go. It could be that there's only one person there, and if, let's say, this blue guy here has got the ball, and they carry the ball out over there, it immediately liberates that person for a pass. So we're looking at different ways that we can drop away to face the pressing, face the defenders, to create opportunities to go in behind. Younger kids, you're starting to look at the fundamentals of changing an outlet shape, of changing how you set up to face an opposition defence to create opportunity in behind them.
It's not quite drilly enough for me, Will.
Sorry. It's very fluid.
One I've been using quite a lot with zonal pressing, but from an outletting perspective, it still works. Have two end zones. This isn't size for size, but two end zones, and then these guys can obviously play and transfer well. These guys are trying to get the ball to the other end, and they're trying to play through, and you can either have two or three in the middle, but they're trying to play through to get to the end zone, and these guys' job would be to either form a triangle or a box zonal press to try and press them. But again, it just gives these guys, if you do it over distance, it gives them that same technical practice of centre-back scanning and centre-back work whilst trying to play forward.
I think there's a really key thing that you're talking about there, Elliot, is actually you're constraining the pressing team. So you're saying you must play in a zone. Therefore, the implicit learning will come from the outlet team. So they'll
probably do it guided discovery to start with. So then, what shape can you make? Do they choose a diamond? Do they choose a box? Do they choose triangles? To try and give them that prep decision. There was one more I was thinking that we did the other day, which was class actually. And this one was from, I think it was Andrea's book actually, which I had to play with. 4 zoned area. You can have one of your players in each box, and then I think it was one in each end channel. And these guys are constrained to a box. These guys are constrained to the end. They can move up and down. You can rotate around, but then the pressing team, I think it was 6. So you ended up with a 6-on-6. I might be wrong. I'll have to look at it and I'll attach the post. But the idea was that you're playing into a box, and these guys can then obviously overload you, but it gives this player option to lead to then play through.
Yeah.
So the X's can go anywhere, but these guys were constrained to their box or leading within and out of box. But it allowed them to. It was really good as an exercise.